important. When we talk about people willing to make a trade-off between their investments and impact, when I made that statement, I'm talking about individual investors. And the example you gave was, I think, actually was a nonprofit itself that's making investments. And I think it's important for all of us to remember that there are different pools of capital, right? There's institutional investors, like we were talking about pension plans. And as the earlier panel suggested, they are governed by rules and regulations that they have to follow, and they have to meet certain payouts and things. So they are somewhat more limited in the kinds of investments they make. And then there's endowments and foundations also who are governed by certain rules and things. And then there are big groups of nonprofits, like the Acumen Fund is a nonprofit organization. And the people who funded Acumen, right, the money that went into that fund was philanthropic money, right? Now that fund then can turn around and make investments, and they're willing to trade off because they don't have a return then requirement back. So you have to think about sort of when you're thinking about this whole trade-off issue, you just have to think about which pool of capital you're talking about and what their motivations are, right? Which is, again, why we started with what the retail investor wanted and then reverse engineered the investment strategy to achieve that matched with our goals as a firm around economic development.
So just to pick up on it, because Acumen is actually in this fund economics project. They were actually the first one that worked on this template. And there's this group of impact investors we're just going out to. We're going to end up with probably 10 that are going to try this template, and then it will perhaps, DFID, who is launching, well, I guess they haven't launched it yet, so I shouldn't be launching. So they're going to be doing things in this impact investing space that is reasonably large, so it's going to be interesting. But Acumen and all of these organizations are exactly the kinds of intermediaries that are prepared to do this very difficult work. But for them to grow, they actually need to move from just the philanthropic, and all of this group is feeling that they need to do some blending. But if they do not tap into the larger institutional, not the retail. Retail is, I think, another whole kettle of fish, but larger endowments and institutions and family foundations, then it's not scalable. And it will not, we will not get the takeoff of a bunch of different kinds of businesses in these countries. It'll be delayed. I mean, it's going to happen, but it will be delayed unnecessarily. So it's exactly that group that we're trying to, and their European version of it, which I'm less familiar with, which is why I'm pleased to be here and want to talk to all of you.
All right. So I'd like to open the floor. I'd like to hear questions. If you maybe raise your hand if you have questions to the audience, please state your name and your affiliation. We have a question over there on the fourth row. Second row first.
Thank you. I work for Bamboo Finance. My name is Jimena Escobar. And I have a couple of questions. So this was a very interesting panel. Thank you all. Perhaps directly for Gloria, as I was listening to you, I was wondering, in our portfolio, we have $250 million invested in around 34 companies. Many of these companies could make good use of debt funding. So I'd be interested in knowing how one proposes these companies to you, and perhaps over coffee we can discuss this, or if you want to respond now. And also, I see the programs you're talking about from USAID. These two, I mean, we have investments in clean energy and agriculture. Does one have to have a link to the U.S. In any way, or can these companies present themselves directly to these projects? Thank you.
Okay. First of all, we actually are good friends with Bamboo Finance. We actually think you guys are doing a great job. Most of the investments that you make, though, I believe are private equity, which actually would not fit with what we're doing, at least in this big fund. because the fund, by nature, because of how we registered the fund in the US, it also has to be debt. But if you do have companies that really want to access debt, then what we would do is suggest that we partner you with one of our sub-advisors, depending on what country they're in. Because as I mentioned, we do all of our investing through like local on-the-ground partners that we call sub-advisors. And we actually have had deals that come to us that then we turn around and funnel back to our sub-advisors and have them, look at them and see if they can fund the company. So we're happy to do that with anybody.
So you're exactly the kind of organization that we're very focused on. In fact, I think you've been invited to join this fund economics project, and I think you're also being invited to give us some ideas about how we ought to structure this Powering Ag Grand Challenge that we've announced and are now out talking to people about what's the best way to design it. Both of these efforts and also the Development Innovations Venture windows are ways for USAID to actually reach out to the world in a way that it hasn't before. We've been historically had a set of kind of implementing partners because of the way we were financed by Congress. And these are ways to work with groups that we've never worked with before. So you're very welcome in all of these things. And it's very important for this exercise that I'm describing to have the full range, to have things that are very much at the philanthropic perspective and things that are quite commercial, because our intention is to be able to crosswalk them. So I'd invite you, love to have a cup of coffee and talk more about it.
You have a question on the floor?
Yes, thank you. Robert Don with Carbon Flow. I've worked the last 12 years in carbon finance and then largely failed with a small project that have the big sustainable benefits and social benefits. So I'm trying to transition into impact investment at the moment. I have a question to Gloria. I really appreciate the idea to get the normal size investor into the game through a fund like you're proposing. And I also agree that measuring the impact would be very important for that investor class. Now I spoke to another fund manager and they say this monitoring, reporting and potentially even third-party verification needs a lot of cost, has a lot of cost to it. So what's your budget allocated in terms of total investment towards this very nice reporting that you're suggesting? And are you looking at third-party verification?
Let me answer that first. Yes, we are looking at third-party verification. In fact, the way we've written the prospectus is that there will be a third-party audit of the impact results. And we've allocated 25 basis points of the fund as an expense towards impact tracking and reporting and third-party verification.
Frederick, is that also the range in some concept on your side, that you also have to invest some money into the reporting? Is it expensive?
Yeah, yes, it has cost, and one example is the kit process that we faced in Europe during the last months. Yes, it has cost, but I think that we need to, we have no choice. It's just like a knife, you need to, if the knife is falling, yes, you need to catch it and you need to move forward and adapt your processes, because clearly the competition is there. We need to differentiate ourselves, and here is the trend. The way to accelerate the process is to continue to work, maybe to elaborate label. So we have local label in France, and maybe we could have European ones to accelerate the process also in terms of reporting and to standardize this reporting. And at the end, if we are standard, maybe it will have a lower cost. Let's see.
I just, a cautionary tale from microfinance. I mean, I completely agree that it's important to be able to track some, outputs. Of course, stories are wonderful, and pictures, and so on and so forth, and tricks. But I also think that, microfinance attracted more commercial philanthropic money than anything that we've ever seen. And